Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. On the program today, we'll attempt to take a look at how, as Nigerians and, of course, as government, we are all coping with the current situation of the country. It is tough, it is hard, but then, of course, we're getting by. What are some of the things that, as individuals, we must learn to do this time round? And as government, what are the obligations of the current administration to alleviate the situation in the country? On the program today, we do have a strategy consultant who's here, and together we'll take a look at this on the conversation today. Join us as we welcome Dipo Oyewole. Thank you for being here on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
So is the hardship getting
From the voice, did you hear the voice?
Well,
that's how you know that nothing is happening.
Are you a Nigerian?
The voice is follow comment. It's not a function of it's not a function of the economy.
Okay.
It's hitting everybody,
it's hitting
directly
everybody.
or indirectly.
All right. So, which means that at this point in time, there's a need to all re-strategize and say how we all can make ends meet. A lot of people right now are just finding ways to survive. But then as individuals, because I know that a lot of people will say government, but as individuals, are there mechanisms, are there strategies that we must deploy here to make things a lot easier on us?
Okay, so I know you said people are saying government. Unfortunately, today I'm going to end up saying government.
No, we will come back.
No, we're starting with government.
Okay, we're starting with government.
No, so this is why, right? We've been having this particular conversation around how people should cope in the last couple of years, especially on this platform and every other one. At least I have that conversation at least once a year. That, well, how should people cope with the current realities of things? And then we tell people, oh, well, maybe you cut costs to try to see how we can save this, save that. Everybody's at their wits' end.
Sure.
Okay, so let's not, I'm not going to come here to say, oh, I'll give you 5 strategies or 5 C's to survive the economy. We don't have that right now. Okay, everybody is done. Everybody's spent. Everybody's pushed to the wall. So now I can't in good conscience come here to say that people should see how to adjust, because everybody's gotten to their limit.
Okay.
Everybody's gotten to the limit. There hasn't been any serious employer anywhere that has increased salary in a very serious way. And in the last 12 months, we've had a lot of cost of items go up. I mean, basic amenities we're talking about. We're not talking about luxuries now. Every single thing has gone up. So in the end, what are we going to tell people to cut cost on? Because initially we started with, oh, okay, maybe you do 101, and then it ended up being 001. Okay, so what are we going to tell them to do now? Is it to do the 001 once in 2 days? Because we have to be practical with this conversation. So for me, in good conscience, we cannot have that particular conversation to look at ways to tell people that they need to see how to adjust again. Okay. They are not adjusting anywhere.
So, all right. So should it be a case of how should government, again, because government will also come out to tell you that we're doing, Joy read a story this morning where Mr. President said all of the things he's doing, Nigerians will laugh at the end of the day. And there's light at the end of the tunnel. We should have hope. So are we still preaching the message of hope to Nigerians? Okay,
well, personally, I'm not an evangelist, but I mean, like I always say that I like to have these conversations objectively. Now, is the government trying to make an attempt at things? I believe so. Are there other things that could go better? In a lot of ways, okay? However, I believe that the problem they have, which is something we've also discussed here in time past, is effective communication. Now, communication is in what you say and what you do not say. So this is how it's approached in what the government should say. So you're doing all these initiatives, you're doing all of these seemingly interesting things. How effectively are you communicating it to the people?
Okay.
We have 774 local governments in this country. How effectively are you utilizing them as a tool of government, not just an arm of government? Seeing how you can break down all your initiatives to liaise. You should have liaison officers in all those local governments to see where it can be broken down to local languages and dialects where people know that, okay, you know what, the government is communicating with us. But people don't see anything, we don't hear anything from you, and then you expect us to just hope that something is going on. Now, the other side of it is in what you do not say. Now, in what you do not say is going to very much lie in your actions. Now, you cannot be telling everybody else, excuse me, to tighten their belts, to see how they can operate under the principle of austerity, and then you at the other end, you are spending as if there's no tomorrow. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because what you're telling us is there is plenty somewhere. Okay. Somehow it's only applicable to you. It isn't applicable to us. Right. So that is why I said this morning, I'm not going to come here to talk about how anybody should adjust to anything. Okay. We'll be having that conversation.
More about calling the government out.
Yes, people in government should understand how to communicate things effectively and to also show that they are empathetic and they are sympathetic to the plight of the people by how they act and how they carry on the business of government.
Sure.
Okay, let me just speak to the core or headline inflations at 34.19% as at July, down from what it was as at June. And of course, you have the food inflation still over at 40.8. But some people have said they've seen some kind of movement as far as the food inflation is concerned. It has moved downwards. OPS, that's Organized Private Sector, said, look, you just have to be careful about these stats you're reeling out. It doesn't really translate to. But some people have said basket of tomatoes has drastically reduced from 100. Who can corroborate with that? It has, right? So it shows that there's some kind or there's a significant movement as far as food inflation is concerned. What do you think government can do, perhaps to cement this? I know government has moved the needle with, look, we're removing tariff on some food items.
Yes.
And of course, the move by the Federal Executive Council yesterday to have
tax relief
in so many sectors of the economy. It's like haulage and rents and all that. Some people feel is one of the ways to cushion the effect, and Oyedele's committee seems to be moving. Do you subscribe to this?
Yes, I mean, because like I said earlier, we need to have objective conversations around these things, and it would be unfair to say they're not doing anything at all. However, it goes to ask the question of how effective it is. Because it's one thing that you're doing something, and the other is how effective is it? Are you getting the actual results you ought to be getting at the level you ought to be getting it? So because you can also say, oh, we're getting the results we ought to be getting, and maybe you're supposed to be batting at maybe like 800, or let's say 80 out of 100, and then you're getting like 10-15% of where you're supposed to be getting. You're not getting those results, but you can then come out to say you're getting traction. Now, with the issue of maybe tomato coming down and all of that, we also need to factor in the season of it. Okay, that is it the season where we have it in abundance and all of that. But I would take that as some kind of win, because in time past we've had a lot of those prices go up astronomically, and I believe that everyone is welcome to have any form of reprieve at this time, even if it is due to a seasonal approach to what we're buying in the markets. That being said, the overall perspective of things is this, that there is a system in place somehow, I don't know if it's formal or informal, where we have a lot of people in the markets, now not just the markets, even some supermarkets, where they get to hike a lot of prices of goods.
Oh, you just took the next question out of my mouth.
Yes,
which, of course, the what's their name now, FCCPC, is also championing and seeing how people can stop taking others for granted.
Yes.
Because you find people just on their own volition hiking prices and then, just taking
You just took the question, because that's my next question.
If there are systems, I mean, you've mentioned, what more do we need to sustain at ensuring that people do not just take undue advantage of others?
Yeah, so that's where the government would need to come in, and they may need to come in a bit aggressively. So this is what I mean. Unfortunately, we have a system that doesn't understand the concept of consequences. Okay, so that's primarily why we're where we are today. That's why we have a lot of folks in government who also behave the way they do. But that being said, with regard to what we're talking about now, with how people are hiking up prices unnecessarily, it also falls on the government to understand that they need to be proactive with this approach, because in the end, all the initiatives they're coming together with, tax relief, removing the tariff on import of goods. So what you then have is, because in Nigeria we know that the principle is what goes up doesn't come down.
Sure.
Okay, we're an anti-gravity universe. Somehow
you defy gravity.
I don't know how we exist. But you then find that even though the tariff on certain items has been lifted, you then have certain merchants who don't bring down their prices. And then you go meet them, what's going on? You say it's old stock they have. They never buy new stock.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so they never buy new stock. But where we have a system where there are consequences for such actions, then it serves as a deterrent. And earlier on, I alluded to the local governments. Now, I have been saying this thing about the local governments for some time now. And I believe that now with the judgments that was received a couple of months ago. Autonomy, about the autonomy, which I also do not believe that we needed an actual court judgment to get that done. But that's a different conversation. That's a different conversation. But with that being on the fore, I would expect that the federal government see how they can work hand in hand with the local governments in this particular regard.
Okay.
Because this is how it should work. So the essence of the local government in any system or in any country or in any nation is that they're the closest form of government to the people. So you have folks within the government, within local governments, that also have the mechanisms to be able to go into the markets to say we're taking data of how much they are selling a pint of gari, how much they're selling a crate of egg, how much they're selling a basket of tomatoes, how much they're selling a basket of rodo. So in the case where you have certain folks that are hiking up prices unnecessarily, you can get to know from that data point. So whatever you're doing at the federal level, that is where you get your data from. So if it's an issue of maybe having them suspended from the market for some time or whatever consequence you want to have in play, it would also inform whatever you're doing at the federal level. Because you cannot say that you're enacting policies or that you're putting policies together without having actual real-life data. You need to have actual real-life data, what is going on the field, for people to know that, okay, you know what, we're not just having some arbitrary things going on. Because, I mean, like you also mentioned, that some folks have also said, okay, you know what, these stats you're quoting, they do not reflect what is really happening on the field. So those are part of the consequences of not being able to get real-time data from what's going on ground. And where you have a lot of people being skeptical about you quoting data to do certain things, and everybody's saying, you know what, this data doesn't reflect my reality. So everybody's just like, you know what, you're just taking us for a ride again. So they need to see how to work with the local governments to see how to work with price control. Now, I've been saying this price control thing for a couple of weeks now. And of course, some people will say, oh, we're operating a free market and all of that. But we also need to understand that somehow it's becoming the Wild West, where everybody's just saying this particular price of something, I'll just jack it up to this particular amount. There's a video that came out, was it 2 weeks ago or so, where a particular chap said, I think he's a retailer now. He went to his wholesaler, wanted to buy maybe a carton of spaghetti. And then he said maybe the night before was sold for maybe like 9.5 or so. And then the morning after, because he saw that there was a lot of demand from the night before,
they jacked up the price.
They jacked up the price overnight and still the same supply. And then he's saying, okay, you know what? So what if I take it to my shop and then I sell mine for 27,000? What's then going to happen? So that is unfortunately what we have in play. So to be fair, again, being objective with these conversations, is the government attempting to do certain things? Yes. However, it's a balancing act where the government is doing one thing and what is going on with people in the field is a different conversation.
So we can't really take away the people from this conversation.
Pardon?
We can't take away the people from this conversation.
So if we do that, we're being disingenuous and we're not really being sincere with ourselves. Because we also need to understand that the government may have their faults, but on the side of the people as well, they need to do better and we need to know to treat each other better.
Okay, which takes me to the question of if there's any way of preaching hope. I don't see it in sight because we have a situation where some people are clamoring that, look, even the hybrid of free market economy or the capitalist economy that we're doing with a pseudo communist feel, like the China kind of thing, where government is doing lots of intervention at the moment. That's a socialist kind of idea. But you have the government that is huge or is very positive, leaning towards the huge spending, where government spends and reinflate the economy with building bridges and getting capital projects done. But we have the private sector that is looking, look, free up the market. Let the forces of demand and supply happen. But we've seen how that panned out. As this morning, there are reports that the owner of a private refinery in the country is saying, look, allow the free market thing to go. Stop subsidizing fuel. But we do know how that is going to play out. That means even the one that we are buying at 1,000 or 900 and something
It's still being subsidized.
is still being subsidized. It means if you allow market forces to determine that 1,416. Is there an end in sight to this, or like it is done even in the United States? There's still subsidy somewhere in the process.
Yes, so again, goes back to efficacy of things. Okay, so personally, the idea of subsidizing things or having palliatives or all those measures in place, the principle behind them is that they're temporary.
Or they should be temporary.
No, in principle, they are temporary. How we operate it is that it should be temporary. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and it's what is also killing us. But it's also a huge pointer to the fact that there's certain things missing in the system where we've not been able to get certain things right, and we need those buffers to be in place because we have those subsidies spread across a lot of things, and it's really not just sustainable for us as a government, as a system. So what it then reflects to, what the first thing that comes to mind is the bargaining power of people. So people cannot really afford the actual market value of things. That's what it means. I mean, to begin with, that's what it means, that people cannot really afford it, because in the end, if they can afford it, the government won't be subsidizing it.
Sure.
Okay? So can we look at measures to ensure that the bargaining power of people is improved upon?
Right.
While we see how to take all of these subsidies out, palliatives out, one at a time, and redirect those funds into critical infrastructure and other things that are working. But we need to have a proper framework to see how to do that in its entirety, because you cannot just say that you're doing one without the other. It has to be, like I said before, a very fine, finessed balancing act.
But in your view, personally, what are some of those infrastructure or those areas that you think that subsidy we can't do away with subsidy totally? Like Joshua said, even in the US, there are certain areas, there's some critical sectors that are subsidized. You look at health, you look at transportation. But in our setting here, we know that, of course, the fuel subsidy is one of the biggest that we do have. And then health is also greatly subsidized. So if we assume that government takes out fuel subsidy in its entirety, can that be plugged into other very critical sectors? So maybe health, maybe transportation. In your opinion, what do you think? Should we do away totally with subsidy in all sectors of the Nigerian economy, or pull away from one and then plug into others?
Yeah, so I mean, it goes back to the point I just made, that we have to be systematic about it. One, it's not possible to yank the wheels or the shocks off the whole thing. And, I mean, the whole vehicle just collapses altogether. So it has to be done one at a time. But like I said, certain things also need to be in place to ensure that when it is done, the effect isn't so much. So at this time, it will be reckless to take out subsidy off of anything, as is, because even right now, with the acclaimed subsidies that we have across board, we are still struggling with a lot of things. So it really doesn't work at this time. But when we're able to see that, okay, for example, what we're discussing before about plugging the loopholes with people hiking prices and all of that, and people see the actual value of what they ought to buy in the markets, and they say, okay, you know what, this, I mean, for example, on I think it was Monday, I had a conversation with my neighbor, and there's someone that sells frozen foods, I think next street to ours, and she recently found out that that lady hiked the price of frozen foods chicken now. Per kilo, I think it was 600 naira per kilo. For turkey, it was 500 naira per kilo.
No, 5,000.
No, 500 naira per kilo. She hiked it by 500 naira per kilo. So so a kilo of turkey that she was supposed to buy was, I think, 4.5. She said it was 5,000. And like that. And so you buy more than 1 kilo, and then you find out that this person has paid, and even at the actual price of maybe 4.4 or 4.5, where you bought it somewhere else, they're already making gains of that particular amount. So why are you then stacking it up with 500, 600? Is it because maybe you profiled her and then you said, okay, I think this person may be able to afford it? See Joshua's suit. If I increase price of turkey for you by 1,000, won't you buy it? You buy it now because no, I know you won't go to the market.
Me?
You buy it.
I'm not buying it.
Okay, don't worry.
That is where they will eat it. They will eat their turkey.
Okay, so on a lighter note, but once we're able to plug all of those things, and then people know that, okay, you know what I'm supposed to buy for 4,400, I'm buying it at 4,400. What I'm supposed to buy at 4,400, I'm buying it at 4,500. Then we can plan adequately.
Okay.
And then we can see, okay, is there a way where employers are able to maybe increase salary a bit? With the subsidy we have on transportation, is that effective enough? The one we have on healthcare, is it effective enough? And then people are able to at least build some form of economic stability for themselves reasonably across a particular duration of time. Then we can start talking about, oh, maybe we are removing one subsidy here and there. But until, I personally, with how things are going now, I don't see the conversation around removing any form of subsidy whatsoever under the next 24 months to be responsible.
Joshua, sorry, a follow-up to what you raised. I'm just going to have you backtrack a bit and, mention a lot of people also said the announcement made by Mr. President when he assumed power at the Eagle Square the other day, the subsidy was gone, it was a wrong move because they felt he should have studied the environment, looked at the books before making that pronouncement. But yes, that pronouncement has been made and we're still grappling with that situation as we speak. So what are some of those things that you would have thought that Mr. President would have put on ground before announcing the subsidy is gone? Particularly because you also said these are things that needed to be done gradually, and then look at some of the critical sectors that you would need to cushion the effects of what the reality will be on the people. So what would you have had him do before making that pronouncement? Okay,
so I'll put out a bit of a caveat before I answer that question, because this is something that I've discussed in private with a lot of people, and I avoid saying this particular thing on air, so I don't come off as a government stooge and all of that. So I'm not paid by the government, but like I said, I like us to be very objective about these things. Now, the fact that the president announced on Inauguration Day that subsidy was gone was not really the issue. So let's be sincere with this conversation. Everybody knows that we've been having this PIB conversation for the longest time. I mean, I knew about PIB since 2009.
Yeah, and now it's PIE, right?
Okay, it was then signed into law in 2021, became an act. And that was by the Buhari administration. And what the letters were by law was that at the end of June 2023, subsidy was going to be removed. As a matter of fact, in the budget for 2023, there was no accommodation for it beyond that.
True.
Okay. So either the president announced it or not, it was going to go.
Right.
Either President Bola Tinubu won the election or not, it was going to go because it was a matter of law. However, that he mentioned it at Eagle Square, he did not say it was going on May 29th.
Okay. Perspective. Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
Did he say it was going now?
He just said subsidy is gone.
He said subsidy is gone as an emphatic statement. Because this is also something, if you also remember, I think around February, the spokespeople of the previous administration, there was a dance around them announcing where subsidy will go, and then people were saying, oh, is it going to be a continuation of the Buhari administration? And then they backtracked and said, oh, the new administration will then announce when it will go, even when everybody knew that it was a matter of law, that it was going to go at June 30th. So this was where the problem of that subsidy came in. And this is why I said I don't like having this conversation on air. So the president announced that subsidy was gone. Like I said, if we are being fair, he didn't say it was going May 29th.
So it wasn't categorical?
No. So this was what happened. He said subsidy is gone. And then you had filling stations hike up prices of fuel. And then they were holding it. Fuel that they had on hand that they had collected subsidy on.
Right.
All right? What was the NNPC supposed to do?
Ask them to sell. Because
ask them to sell, close them up.
They had been paid.
Close them up. This is what NNPC then did. They kept quiet 48 hours after. They then went to release a phantom price list. So like I tell people privately, this whole subsidy thing and how it began with this administration, NAPC was the one that botched it, if we're being objective with it. This is not absolving the presidency of anything. If they were at fault with anything, I would say it. NAPC botched it. What they were supposed to do was to go shut down those filling stations because the petrol you are hoarding, you had collected subsidy on it. What you had in your storage till the end of June, you had collected subsidy on it.
It could also have been that, NNPC too was also owing.
So this is it. Either they were owing or not, the people that were running the filling stations had collected subsidy. What they had in storage
should have been sold.
Should have been sold at the current price till June 30th. They were not supposed to hoard it because it was not brand new information that subsidy was going to go at the end of June. 48 hours after, NNPC came out with a funny price list that everybody then had to adjust to. Ideally, that price was supposed to come at the beginning of July.
Right.
To take effect from the beginning of July. But because NNPC had done that 48 hours after, it was too late to then walk it back. To then say, okay, NNPC, this is not what you're supposed to do, because in the end, we were still going to end up here in the next 31, 32 days. So they just said, okay, you know what, let's just go with the flow. That's why personally I had said the leadership of NNPC should have been fired and likely prosecuted for something. Because if a lot of people do not understand this perspective and they say, oh, the president announced it, so either he announced it or not, it did not matter he was going. Either he won or not, because it was a matter of law, and it should have been illegal to have pushed it beyond that particular stipulated time.
I think NNPC at the moment has so many things dangling on its head. It's got the debt issues still right there.
For financial mismanagement.
Of course, you can't be declaring. Well, that's another conversation. We're still talking about the hardship or the economic situation of the country. And I think it's going to be my own final question to you. As an incurable optimist that I am, I look at the silver lining everywhere, and I try to look at which part of this economy do you think is the best way that will salvage, or better still, that will recover faster than any other part of the economy. We have realized that the few situation we feel we're going to get with the private refinery is not going to happen that soon. In fact, it came with a bigger price, and then I saw that long before now. I saw that, but some people still don't get it. They still don't understand the fight that was happening that time.
They will know now.
Okay, but for me, which part of the economy? Because we've seen an uptick in our exports. Nigerians are exporting more now. I don't know. I think it's still vegetable, agricultural produce.
Yeah.
Which part will help so many people? Because there's this multi-rippling effect it has if one part of the economy scale up or kicks off, the other part will trickle to the earning power of the people. Which part of the economy do you think is the banks are recapitalizing at the moment? You have other. Where do you see?
Okay, well, first thing I'll say, you see that banks own, leave it out of
the equation.
No, that means they can lend more, they have more better
when have they ever
money.
done that?
No, don't forget, we still have the...
Have what?
The baseline.
Joshua, please, let's leave this thing. We know Nigerian banks don't do actual banking.
What do they do?
They do trading. No.
It's trading they do now. Okay, so they declare profits year on year. Tell me the year in the last 10 years that a Nigerian bank has recorded a loss. Tell me the economic realities of Nigerians in the last 10 years. Now, not just the economic realities of Nigerians. I mean, core numbers that we have, hard figures to say, okay, did the economy do well in this year? The economy went this way. Bank is saying, oh, we were fine.
Profit.
You have a bank that declares billions of naira as profits, and then they tell you that 76% to 80% of that is generated from bank charges. So which banking are you doing? How are you doing from POS operator? Because you have AC.
Well, they are helping you keep your money inside their vaults.
I'll keep it in my wardrobe.
Rats will eat your money.
Well, I have comfort.
Oh yeah, let's move forward.
Let's move forward. So Nigerian banks, they are not sound indicators of the health economy of the Nigerian economy. Let's take them out of the equation. Now, to which part of the economy would need a serious boost to drag the others along? Honestly speaking, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because
you can't even. No. There's no indication.
Manufacturing.
So I'm not saying that to be pessimistic, okay? I'm saying it with the current realities of things, that every sector
at the moment
is fighting for their life now. So, and we also have to be careful with, so
words,
we don't spread false optimism. So if we say manufacturing, and then we're saying, okay, because electricity is better, manufacturing, not
But
understanding the fact that
they're paying more.
So they're paying more, so then it means that the items cost more.
Yes, the
and
consumer
in
will pay
cases
more.
where, even before now, either they were using generator, now they're using band-aid or whatever band they're on. You find that locally manufactured goods are sometimes, if not all the time, more expensive than imported things.
Yeah.
So
the costs.
So that's why I'm being careful with doing the optimistic thing. But I would hope that the strategy will be that there are policies in place, sound policies, that ensure that all the various sectors of the economy are able to hold hands together to move along, instead of having one go ahead to stretch, to reach back and say, okay, others come along. Because you find that if there is one that's maybe surged ahead by 1 or 2 points, it's because they fought for their life, and they're likely on CPR. You just cannot.
So before we allow you go, I know that
identify.
you're not totally a pessimist. Somehow you're still an optimist. And when we started, you did say that your focus was not going to be on the people, but on government today. But I'm sure the people still want to keep a ray of hope alive. Is there still room to be hopeful that things could be better?
Okay, well, I think the best I can say is that we're alive, so we have to be hopeful, and hoping that the government do the things they need to do, and they are deliberate about it.
Okay.
Because like I said, until we understand the piece of consequences and things, these things will keep continuing, and they will drag out more than we plan to. So the government should do what they ought to do as soon as possible to ensure that that is sorted out. And I believe that certain things will start to fall in line. But more importantly, effective communication, like I started with what is said and what is not said, which is mostly action-based.
All right, we would have to leave it here today. Thank you so much, Dipo Oyewole, strategy consultant, for finding time to be here on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's keep hope alive. Let's not lose all the hope, and hope that government will be alive to their responsibilities, do the appropriate thing at the right time, so we all can be better citizens and enjoy the country, Nigeria. We'll take a quick break. When the conversation returns, it will be the turn of the Lagos ladies to take us through their conversation. I wonder why they are chuckling.